welcome back to the Do Not Disturb Football Podcast. I am your host, Drew Pelter. To my top right is Nimmer. To my top left is Darian. I haven't done that live yet, so I was trying to figure out what that would look like. I want to apologize for missing the show yesterday. You guys ran an amazing show. I feel really disappointed because I missed it all to go watch the Pirates get blown out 9-2. So that was when I tuned into the podcast. It was 9-2, and the pitcher had just walked a run in. So it was an absolute
pitch.
No, we wish that was today. Paul Skeens pitched, but the two relievers that came in, I had never heard of them. Jalen Beeks and some other guy, and the last guy had a 10.32 ERA. So horrible, absolutely terrible. When I saw that come on the screen, I was like, "Oh no!" It was already 7-2.
That's when your cheap seats become expensive seats. You can just go right back down.
They were pretty nice seats. Anywhere you sit in that stadium is pretty nice. But except for, I guess, the seats not facing the city. How are you guys doing? How was the show yesterday? How'd you guys feel? Nimmer, I'll start with you.
It went really well. We kind of briefly discussed the weekend. I feel like there was so much to kind of unpack in the weekend that we kind of just briefly over, like that we drank 15 cases of beer. That was pretty impressive, and just the whole draft. I think the draft night. We kind of asked Darian this, and I guess I'll ask you, what was your highlight of the weekend, Drew?
Oh man, there was I think it was because I got there on Saturday morning when we woke up. It was like 7:30 or 8 o'clock, and there was this like crisp feeling in the living room, and then you go outside and it was even crisper outside. That was my favorite part of the weekend. Like, that is like a feeling that I have like stuck in my head from that weekend, because I'm back here in this sticky, hot, sweaty weather. And that weather was beautiful the whole weekend. I loved it.
What would you change about the weekend?
What I change? This next weekend is a 4-day weekend for me. So I would say maybe next year we do it on Labor Day weekend.
Interesting. That's it.
Because the chances of us all having a 3-day weekend goes up that weekend. And it's even closer to the season.
We don't have to worry about like PTO and time off and stuff like that. That's a good idea.
Right.
Darian said, and I kind of agreed, the things that we would change is probably spend like half a day actually exploring the city. I feel like we didn't really explore the city that much. I mean, you came a day later, but in general, we didn't really explore the city. We were in, would you say, what lake was it? Hansen Lake?
Hayden Lake. We were up in Hayden.
Hayden Lake. So I feel like we should have explored the city, especially if we're going to start traveling to different places and stuff like that. Like we were in Coeur d'Alene, but we didn't visit Coeur d'Alene. So, so that's one thing that we said that we would change. But other than that, no, I'm doing really well. Just grinding along, adulting. But this is gonna be this is the last Thursday before football, right? And then next Monday is the last Monday before football. So my juices are flowing. College football is happening. So this is the best time of the year.
Darren, how are you?
We are good. It was a pretty good day today over at work. Just was really excited to get on the podcast with the boys, talk some new news, and just grade some of these rosters that we have from our league and even one of our fans. So really, really amped and buzzing for that.
Yeah, it's been really fun announcing that we're going to be doing this roster report card. I think it's a really cool way to get people involved, and you'll get a shout out along the way. So I'll make the reminder here early. I'm going to keep saying it until it's kind of sketched in everyone's brain. Send us your rosters on Instagram, D&D Football Pod on Instagram. Send us one screenshot of your starters and one screenshot of your bench, and we will shout you out on this podcast, and we'll give you a grade. Don't take it to heart. I'm probably going to be pretty harsh about it, to be honest with you. But that's just me. I'm harsh on everything. Every movie I go see, I grade it harsher than most people do. I feel like I'm pretty critical, not towards everybody else, but even myself. I'm a very critical person. So
for the viewers, not this year, last year, one of our members or whatever players, team members or whatever, drafted Hollywood Brown, and Drew was just like, that is one of the dumbest picks you could ever do. You were such an idiot, and just completely ripped him a new one. And that was just one pick. So
I think the problem was it was like in the 5th round. That was like the crazy part.
Way too early for Hollywood.
And that same guy drafted Drake London this year with his 2nd round pick. Yeah. So I had to give him the same speech again this year.
Yep. Same treatment.
I was like, Devin, you don't watch the pod? We told you not to do that.
That's hilarious.
But let's get right into the injury report. We are past what seems like the beginning of the season where everyone was getting hurt, and now you just have a couple people getting injuries. Big one today was Elijah Mitchell. That's the backup to Christian McCaffrey in San Francisco. He has been placed on IR and is out for the season. I can't really tell what the injury was. I know he had a hamstring, and then they put him on IR once he returned to practice. So I'm not sure if he had another injury. This is according to ESPN's Nick Wagner, but he is now out for the season. That's a bad sign. I mean, that's Elijah Mitchell, I feel like, was really, really good before McCaffrey showed up. Every time McCaffrey's been out, Elijah Mitchell's been a really good replacement for him. I guess that leads to, I can't remember his first name, but Mason is his last name.
Yeah,
I think
Jordan Mason.
Jordan Mason. So he'll probably be the next guy that gets a lot of hype. If, McCaffrey ever misses a game, you always want to pick up the Niners backup. They always run really well. That system that they have there is similar to what, I watched in Denver growing up, and the running backs always did well in Denver. They're always doing good in San Francisco. So just watch out for that. Another injury, Bears wide receiver Keenan Allen had foot discomfort today and left practice. This is not considered serious, but might be something to just take a look at. Browns running back Pierre Strong Jr. is now considered questionable with a rib injury. This leaves him as the only healthy running back on the Browns roster right now. Leaves Ford as the only healthy running back on the Browns roster right now. So they have really been hit with the injury bug early in the season. I think Conklin's back, but I still think they have some other linemen that are hurt. That is super unfortunate. Hopefully this isn't too serious and you can at least have 2 running backs. I would prefer 3 probably, at least. Did you guys have any reactions to this?
No, just how quick Kaysen was in our league to get Jordan Mason. I'm pretty sure he saw I'm pretty sure he saw the Instagram notification pop up. San Fran dropped their roster and immediately looked at their running backs. But I think it was in the middle of the night too that he did that move too. So props to him for being up to date on his favorite team and getting the drop on Jordan Mason and handcuffing.
Yeah, he always has the backup. He always drafts the backup. Whoever it is to McCaffrey, he always drafts that guy with his last pick. It's really interesting to watch.
And he's a Niner fan too, so it's I feel like you wouldn't, out of spite, you wouldn't draft the backup just in case, superstitious. But
I feel like there was a buzz around everybody in our group that was like, "Do we draft McCaffrey? No, we probably shouldn't. He's going to get hurt this year." So.
That's a good point.
Yeah, except for Ricky. Ricky was the one guy who was like, "I'm drafting him. Screw you guys."
Yeah.
But let's go into the news around the league now. We have one signing today that happened. A couple signings happened, but this is probably the bigger one. This is Dalvin Cook. He signed with the Dallas Cowboys. So now you have Ezekiel Elliott, Dalvin Cook, we would think is the second string, don't really know. And then Rico Dowdle. Does this actually help the Cowboys? That's the question. Is this someone of value? I mean, he's been on the Ravens, the Jets, hasn't really done a whole lot in the past couple of years. It's kind of had a lot of injuries as well. Darren, why don't I start with you?
Yeah, I don't really know if it actually helps out the Cowboys. I think it's a deal that was done 3 years too late. If you signed or traded for Dalvin several years ago when he was in his prime and paired that with Zeke, I think that's what gets you over the curve and winning a Super Bowl. But doing it right now, where we've seen Dalvin really just completely fall off the face of a cliff, basically, in his performance, I think it's just a deal done too late. If it was earlier on in Dalvin's prime, it would have been a really big blockbuster news. Now it's just kind of like, oh, let's see how he performs. Do I handcuff? I'm not really sold on it, and I don't really advise uh, many folk to put a lot of investment into the picking up to Dalvin Cook. I think Rico Dowdle is a safer pick, and keeping him on your roster is going to be a better move than dropping and then picking up Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, I guess I'll go to the owner of Rico Dowdle next. Nimmer, why don't you give your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean now that they signed him, that is kind of concerning because if you, I mean, all throughout training camp and preseason, they're like Dowdle is doing really well, he's performing, blah blah blah. But then if he's performing like that, then why sign Dalvin Cook and why sign another older running back? Like they just signed Zeke back, which he's going up in age, and so now you're gonna have another running back. I saw this TikTok where it was like two older guys coming up, and there's like this is the Cowboys running back room now. It's like I feel like that is really how it is. Especially I feel like they should have, instead of signing Dalvin Cook, they should have put that money towards maybe another receiver to help CD relieve some double team or help Dak out a little bit more. I don't think Dalvin Cook is going to be that big of an influence when it comes to the Cowboys, especially because they haven't done anything but get worse this offseason. So I don't see this helping the Cowboys, and Dalvin Cook is definitely not on my watch list at all.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty interesting. I don't really like last year watching the Cowboys run scheme was pretty interesting because you had Pollard there who couldn't really score a touchdown. He could give you maybe 3 or 4 yards a pop. And then they would throw like Turpin back there sometimes for like a pitch and give Rico Dowdle some carries. It's like the Cowboys are within that mindset of we don't need a running back. And I think they're like foolish to think that. I think if you wanted to sign a running back, you had someone that would have been perfect for your system, and that was Derrick Henry.
Mm-hmm.
And you let that guy go. And I'm assuming it's probably because they couldn't pay him the money with CD coming up. But signing all these geezers to deals, to me, it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
And it would make sense if they had a strong wide receiver core. So like if they were, the Packers, the Bears, the Texans, if they have a strong wide receiver core and you're going to be passing the ball a lot, then okay, that's fine. You just need somebody to, get those third and ones, or those goal line carries and stuff like that. Like that's fine. But then if you only have CD, I guess the number 2 option is Jake Ferguson. So what?
Cooks.
Huh?
Brandon Cooks too.
You have Brandon
Cooks
Cooks,
there.
but I don't know.
Older guy too.
Yeah, exactly. And he's kind of wishy-washy. He would definitely went up and down. You don't have like a solid wide receiver too, like those, or even like the Bengals if they signed T. Higgins. T. Higgins was looking for a deal, so I don't know. I feel like it's fine to sign older running backs if you have a supporting cast to not depend on those people. But the Cowboys don't. They rely on their running backs just as much as their wide receivers. A little, I mean, to a certain extent.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard you guys talking yesterday about the Cowboys defense too and how you guys would probably fade them this year. I would third that opinion. I definitely think that Cowboys defense is going to disappoint this year. For fantasy owners that own the Dallas Cowboys defense, if you spent a high draft pick on that defense, I feel really sorry for you because that defense is going to come up flat in a lot of moments when you need them. So maybe I wouldn't trade them, but get off of them, go get a different defense. I would go get that Atlanta Falcons defense if it's out there on the waiver wire. I saw that one is owned by like 7% of people right now. So that is one I would go get with the stars that they brought in. I think that's a lot better option than the Dallas Cowboys defense.
Agreed.
The Hassan Reddick holdout continues. Robert Saleh doesn't seem to be too concerned about this. He says Reddick has plenty of time. So I'll ask you guys, do you think the deal gets done before the regular season? Nimmer, why don't you start?
I mean, there's still time. No, there's not. Literally, the season starts next week. What do you mean that there's still time? I don't get that logic. But I think so. Just because, as we saw with some players that did hold out, that they don't really do that well when they come back. So I think this deal will get done. I think that the Jets need to just have all personnel on the field in the beginning of the week, next week. So I think that deal will get done, but I just don't understand what's taking so long. I mean, I really just don't understand the situation at all.
It seems like a situation that's getting worse and worse. It seemed kind of with like CD, you kind of knew he wanted to stay in Dallas.
Mhm.
Hassan Reddick, he's already asked for a trade, and it seems like as the days pass, that's not getting better. Darian, what is your reaction to this?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it, I think, in our first episode, breaking down his contract, and I was for him getting paid. I still am. I think that the Jets should just, hedge their bets, give him a contract that is deserving of so. But I don't think a deal gets done before week one. I think he's going to hold out. He's stubborn, and so is the Jet organization. And I think they're just clashing right now. But I think what it'll come down to realistically is how much money Hassan Reddick is getting fined. I saw a stat that he's currently at around 2.5, maybe even around $3 million that he's been hit with fines already for not showing up and attending these OTAs, mini camps, everything that he was supposed to. And so I think once it gets to $5 million lost, where it burns a massive hole in his pocket, he's going to feel it, show up to the facility, work out a deal. This time, probably not in his favor, just because he lost leverage, and that's when he'll be back on the field. I think that could be around maybe week 2, week 3 that we see a true deal done, if it really is about how much money he's losing every week.
And
So
the
you think
game
he could
checks,
actually?
too. You know what I mean?
You think he
Like,
could actually hold out in the regular season, like the first game?
I think he could. For how I think he's got the longest holdout so far, like in NFL history. But I mean, besides like the strikes and everything that's gone on, but like an actual player holdout, he's already surpassed. I think it was Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah. Yeah, like Nimmer was saying, those game checks, that's a different kind of chunk of change. That is a much heftier bill.
Yeah,
How long did Chris Jones hold out last year? I remember he was like kind of was it mid-season that he was holding out, or I remember he missed a couple games, right? Or was
Yeah,
that
I think
preseason?
I don't remember honestly. I want to say he only missed a game
I think he only missed one game. Yeah,
So,
because I think the season opener, that was the big shock, was Chris Jones wasn't there.
mm,
if I'm remembering correctly. And then I think he was there the second week.
Okay. So I feel like once he doesn't get that game check and looks, those checks are the fines just keep piling up. I can definitely see that happening, but I think they'll get it done before that.
Definitely. Well, this situation has made me kind of think of trades. I want to ask you guys which trades you want to see before the season starts, maybe even before the trade deadline. I'll start. It would be the guy we just talked about. I would like to see Hassan Reddick traded to the Detroit Lions. I think that would be such a great fit for them. He's opposite of Aiden Hutchinson. I think they would play perfect together. I think he would actually look pretty cool in the Detroit Lions uniform. That would be, to me, the missing piece for Detroit to actually compete against the Kansas City Chiefs if they were to get to the Super Bowl. I think Hassan Reddick on the Lions would be a really, really cool fit. That would be the trade I would like to see. Darren, what about you? Which trade do you want to see happen before the season?
Yeah, this one, I was thinking about it and just seeing after the roster moves, and we were talking about it yesterday, Nimmer and I. The Washington Commanders wide receiver core is a bunch of nobodies outside of Terry McLaurin. And I think we need to make a move, whether that be a big star like Ayuk, or like I was saying to Nim, like we're gathering draft pieces, like draft capital. I think we can make a play for T. Higgins. And I think that would be a great compliment with McLaurin, another big body receiver on the edge with him. And then you have guys like De'Ami Brown that they drafted out of North Carolina a couple years ago, who's kind of been really quiet his first couple of years, but he showed out in the preseason. Him being a streaker, he's more of like that fast guy in the slot. I think that would bolster the wide receiver core, make it a lot more healthy. And then you also have Jamison Crowder, who's a veteran slot receiver, who's also our punt returner. So I think that would really round out our team and our wide receiver core if we went for T. Higgins.
That would be super interesting to see T. Higgins and McLaurin on the same team. Remember, who's the trade you want to see? And I'm going to guess it's Ayuk to the Steelers.
Yeah, that's exactly. I just want to see. I just want this situation to be over. I don't like this. Like, is he gonna stay? Is he gonna go? I don't like this whole changing his mind. It's either you're gonna be in Pittsburgh or you're gonna be in the 49ers. We're just about we're just over a week away. That we just need to have that decision down. So I'd like to see what happens with him in the beginning before the beginning of the season. But a trade that I would like to see during the season, or that I am guessing that might happen, is Dak getting traded to the Raiders. They're paying CD. I feel like they've already kind of exploited that they're gonna pay Parkins instead of Dak. So, and the Raiders, I mean, that's really their only question mark on that team. Their defense is solid. Their wide receivers is solid. Zamir White is pretty solid from the end of last year. Coach is solid. So I just think that's really their only question mark. And so I think that they're gonna go out and they're gonna go out and try to trade for Dak. So, and really pay him. So I feel like that's gonna happen before the trade deadline, or at least rumors, and they're gonna try to talk to the Cowboys about that. And yeah,
that would be interesting. I would imagine it would be when Dallas is showing that they're not that great of a team this year. Mm-hmm. The Raiders need that missing piece, and that would make it happen. What's crazy is I saw this on Instagram, one of these news posts that you see on Instagram. I don't know how true it is or how false it is. I'm assuming it's pretty false. But I saw this report that the Niners and Washington were actually in talks at one point for a Brandon Ayuk and picks for Terry McLaurin trade. And it didn't fall through because Washington pulled out. Which that would be an insane trade to actually happen.
That would have been nuts.
Yeah.
That would have been crazy. Absolutely bonkers.
But I feel like if they're trading for Ayuk, they want to keep their receiver as well. I mean, the same with the Steelers. Like, I feel like we want to keep Pickens and we want Ayuk to mimic Pickens and be on the other side. The only one that I kind of could understand is what is his name, Amari Cooper, where the Browns were going to trade Amari Cooper. And I was like, okay, yeah, that kind of makes sense because he is getting old. Then you're replacing him with a younger receiver. But, I mean, trading your number one receiver to get Ayuk is not smart. I mean, that's why I was kind of weary if the Steelers traded for Ayuk. I hope we're not giving any of our players, our star players, like Pickens, definitely not Watt, but like I saw this other report that was saying Fitzpatrick was going to be part of the trade, and I was like, no, then I definitely don't want Ayuk on the team. If we're going to get rid of any of our players, it's not worth it. But that would be insane.
Yeah, I thought that was a fun segment for today, just to see who we would like to see traded. Granted, the league we live in, we had, I don't know, 69 trades last year. So maybe I just have that in my head. I saw you guys talk about it yesterday, saying it's probably going to be a lower amount of trades this year. I would agree with that. I still think there's going to be trades. I would guess maybe ballpark 10, 15.
Darian said 5. Darian said that he's only going to trade 5.
Well,
he's only going to trade 5 trades. I said I'll have 15 attempts.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to have way more attempts. What? We're going to get a text every week. What do you mean?
Yeah.
There's been trade rumors in our league already. So things are stirring.
Spill the beans on who?
I know. What?
Well, it definitely is a part of one of those 3 QB teams.
And you?
I've convinced myself I'm going to use QB carousel method and just pick somebody up off of waivers every week, or if there's a more favorable matchup. But trade rumors going around, from what I've heard, is Quaz is making an attempt at a very unsuspecting player. He's going after Nick Chubb from Austin.
I love Nick Chubb. That's a good player.
Once I saw Austin draft Nick Chubb, I was like, oh, he's getting offers for that.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that instantly.
Yeah, so there was a little bit of debate. He was asking, like, what would be a good trade.
Knowing Quaz, it'll be like a rookie second-string player for Chubb.
Yeah, so there's some pieces moving. We'll see if anything comes up. Just being in the trade council or committee, I should say, it's interesting to see what may come this way this year.
Negotiating a trade with Quaz is always like such a funny thing, because I'm sure he'll go to Austin and give him like the last player on his roster, and Austin will say no, and he'll be like, but Chubb's hurt. Like, Chubb's hurt though. So that's kind of Quaz to a T.
I'm going to sneak in. I'm going to text Austin right after this and see.
Oh,
yeah.
Really?
Thing about Austin, you got to catch him at like 4 a.m. on a Friday night.
Yeah,
that's the hard part.
That's a good point.
And we are bringing up these names. If you want to see a little bit more about these names, who we're talking about on all of our Instagram, TikTok, social media pages, I posted a video that has everybody in the league on that video, so you can actually put a face to these names. It's Austin is pretty obvious. He's the last one to go.
The one with the do-rag.
and we go over his draft in the video and his first 4 picks, which we will talk about in his report card. But let's move on to the next piece of news. Rams coach Sean McVay announces that Kyron Williams will return punts. So I don't know what this means exactly. He did return some punts last year, not very many. So I'm not sure if Sean McVay is saying he's returning all punts or if it's going to be like he's the backup punt returner. Let me know what your guys' reaction to this. Nimmer, why don't you go first?
When I first heard the news, I was like, "Oh, cool! That means that he has more chances to like score touchdowns, right?" But then I was after putting it like thinking about it a little bit more. I'm not a big fan of this because that means that he's gonna get hit twice as much, and he's already coming off an injury. Last season he didn't play a full season, and running backs do get hurt pretty often. So you knock on wood, but I think that this is a mistake. I don't think that you should put your starting running back there to return punts. Maybe kickoffs I can kind of see, just because of the new kickoff rules. But punts, I definitely don't recommend. I definitely don't like it at all, especially because he is on my team. So I'd rather just put him in the backfield, let him do what he's starting to do, like what you put him as a starter to do, and just have even maybe your backup running back. What's his name? Blake Corum. That's
Blake Corum? Yeah.
Yeah, Blake Corum go back there, and if you really want a running back, but I don't like putting your starting running back there to return punts.
Or like Tutu Atwell, he can't return kicks. That's what I thought too. Darian, what's your reaction?
Honestly, when it comes to it, I think we should see where and when he was actually returning those punts. Because last year, I know the Rams had running back by committee. They had Darrell Henderson, Cam Akers at one point before he got traded to the Vikings, who's now on the Houston Texans. So Kyron was a backup. So maybe that's why he was returning punts. And then once he started getting the nod because Darrell got hurt, they shipped off Akers and they saw the potential in Williams. That's when they retracted him from punts. But like Nimmer said, I think it's a dangerous move overall to put your starting running back there when you have other guys like Tutu Atwell. I don't know if they kept Whittington. He was looking sharp on the offense. One of the new wide receivers that they got in the late rounds. He looked good.
I believe he's still there.
Yeah, if he's still there, I'd put him back there. That guy's a dog. But to put your starting running back into another set of plays where he's going to get banged up, get hurt, I don't think it's a good move. But if he's showing up maybe once or twice, I think it could be beneficial, just to break off a big play. But if it's a consistent thing, you're going to wear him down. He's already had an ankle injury. Let's try to keep him as safe as possible going in for that offense.
Yeah, for Kyron's sake, I'm hoping that McVay is saying like he's in the rotation to be a punt returner. Like there's already a punt returner there, and Kyron's like the backup. That's what I'm hoping he's saying. I think Kyron missed his first, like a majority of his first season with an injury. Mm-hmm. And then the second season, he had 2 injuries during that season, and that's just carrying the ball. So I can't imagine putting him back there as a punt returner is going to help him stay healthy. I would say for people that are interested in the waiver wire, definitely target Blake Corum. With this news, I would 100% drop, the last player on my roster and try to grab Blake Corum if he's out there. Quaz in our group has him. I texted him as soon as I saw that news, and I was like, that is pretty good news for you. And he was like, yeah, that's the steal of the draft, to mark my words. And I said, I probably agree. He could end up having tremendous upside. He scored 24 touchdowns his last year at Michigan. He was like the focal point of the offense, in my opinion. It's a really interesting move to put Kyron back there returning punts. If he is the actual guy actually returning all the punts, I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah. I wonder if it's going to be like how they said, Justin Fields is going to be returning punts, just to kind of just have us, the media talk about something about them, because the Rams really haven't been talked about besides fantasy. Like, should we draft Puka? Should we draft Cooper Cup? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
So maybe they're just feeling left out, and they're just like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna say this and not actually do it. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting story. I'm interested to see that first punt to the Rams this year. Who's returning the punt? Because if it's Kyron, I feel bad for the fantasy owners out there that have him, because that could be a problem.
Yeah, I'm gonna trade him right after their first game.
You can get Chubb for him.
He's on
Chubb,
the
there you
trade
go.
block.
Go get Chubb.
Go get Chubb.
I'm about to. I already texted Austin.
No way.
Yeah,
Mid-show.
mid-show.
Big show. Send it to
That's
the
what
trade committee.
I'm hoping we have a trade go down live. That'd be funny.
That would be funny.
Next segment we have is our over-under. This has been something that we have been doing for the past couple weeks. We're going to predict the East divisions in each conference, so the AFC East and the NFC East. First up, we have the AFC East. We have the Buffalo Bills at 10.5 wins, Dolphins at 9.5 wins, Jets at 9.5 wins, and the Patriots at 4.5 wins. So I will start. We'll just kind of say one team at a time, over, under, and then we'll say who's going to finish first through last. So the Bills, 10.5 wins. Nimmer, what do you think? Over, under?
I am super bearish on the Bills. I don't think that they're going to be as good as people think. I don't think that Josh Allen is going to be as good as people think. I have them going 1-1 with the Dolphins, 1-1 with the Pats. I think the Pats sneak one in. I think they lost. They went 1-1 last year as well, and I think the Jets sweep them. I think that the Jets defense is just too good, and the Bills offense is not. They only really have Josh Allen and James Cook, and I think that's going to be a huge problem with the top 5 defense in the Jets. And so I have them at 7 wins.
Wow. Darian, what is your prediction there? Over, under?
I'll definitely take the under, but not that severe of an under. I do think that they've lost some pieces on the defense, and obviously losing a big piece in Stephon Diggs, it really puts a damper on your offense. But I think with James Brady's offense, they saw it start to rise in their playing ability. By like James Cook, his fantasy points per game grew every game with James Brady coming in. But I think with just that and how explosive their offense can be, they're still going to eke out 8 to 9 wins. But I will say they're going to be on the under. I don't think they're as good as they used to be. They're in their Super Bowl window is unfortunately closing at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's probably closed, to be honest. I don't know. I could be wrong, but
size hole,
No, I think the receivers are really young. I think that they just need a couple.
But
years.
they lost Poyer and Micah Hyde and Tre'Davious White.
I didn't even talk
Milano's
about
on IR. Like, that's a lot of people on that defense going.
So I think I have them just sneaking under. I'm going to put them at 9 or 10 wins. I think you look at the history of this division, the Bills have dominated this division. I think that is a thing that they might have on, say, the Dolphins mentally, especially the Dolphins. They've beat up on the Dolphins and on big stages too, absolutely blown them out. So I think there's a little bit of a mental edge with the Bills. I do have them at like 9 or 10 wins, so I'm going to say they go under, but just barely. And let's do the Dolphins next. 9.5 wins. Darian, why don't you start? Over, under?
Yeah, I'm really excited about this team. I think this is their year. And I think they take the division. So they're going to have the over in this one, where they're going to be. I think their ceiling is 12 wins in a like the best case scenario, but I really do have them hovering around 10 to 11 wins this season. Only thing that I saw that was an issue is how many wide receivers they kept on their team after cuts. They only have 4. And in this market, this and like also 2 of them have been hurt consistently over the past couple of years in Waddle and Tyreek. To have only 4, that's a crazy go. But McDaniels probably has something up his sleeve. He has something going on in his noggin. But I do think with just how explosive and how creative this team is, they're going to get the division and be on top with 10 or 11 wins.
Nimmer, what about you? Over under 9.5 wins for the Dolphins.
So I have them going. I have them going 9 wins. I think that their last 6 games, I think they're going to start out really well, just like they did last year. But I think once, I don't want to say the cold hits, because I think that's kind of like a lamer excuse. But I think that their last 6 games are Packers, Jets, Titans, 49ers, Browns, and Jets. So that, I mean, I thought the Steelers had a gauntlet. That's a pretty tough last 6 games. So I mean, out of those 6 games, they might squeeze 1 or 2, maybe, maybe one against the Jets and then the Browns, maybe. But even after the Browns, I mean, the Browns have a hard hitting defense, so they're gonna be limping after that game. Plus, they lost their D tackle. What's his name? Went to the
Christian
Raiders.
Wilkins.
Huh?
Christian Wilkins, yeah.
Christian Wilkins.
Exactly. And then I think they lost another part of their defense. And so once their middle linebacker, I think his name's Chubb, once Chubb got hurt, that's when it started going downhill. So I feel like since they're losing a couple pieces on defense, their offense cannot keep up, can't compensate for the lack of defense.
Yeah, they've actually added some pretty cool pieces. You think about Jalen Ramsey that came in late last year. He's going to be back. Jordan Poyer, I think, is going to make a big difference for them on the back end. Chubb is back healthy. Jordan Phillips is back healthy. With that being said, though, I got them going under. I think they're probably looking at an 8-win season. I think people have figured out Tua. I like Tua, but I think you can only draw up such a good scheme for Tua to succeed. Eventually, people are going to figure him out, and I think they have watched enough film on Tua to figure him out. The pieces that they have offensively are great. There are, you say to any team in the league, do you want Tyreek Hill? Do you want Jalen Waddle? Do you want Mostert and A-Chain? I think most teams in the league would say, yes, sign me up right now. But the problem is you have a quarterback that doesn't have the biggest arm, doesn't read defenses all that well, in my opinion. To me, they've kind of been figured out. They got off to a hot start last year. I think they got off to a hot start the year before. I could see it happening again this year. Start off hot, go into a scud, start to lose a bunch of games, end up finishing 8-9 or something like that. I don't think it's going to be a great season this year for the Dolphins, especially with teams like the Bills and the Jets in this division. We have the Patriots next, 4.5 wins. This is pretty low, but not a ton of expectations for the Patriots this year. Don't know who the quarterback still is. Remember, what do you think? Over, under 4.5 wins?
I think they get 2 wins. I think they're going to beat the Chargers, and I think they're going to beat the Bills. I think those are going to be their two wins. I feel like they just need a lot of help. Whether they know the starter, they need a lot of help on the offensive line. So they hopefully are going to go with Brissett. No, isn't that his name? Brissett.
Brissett, yeah.
Brissett, yeah.
Hopefully they go with him and then give May a little back seat type of action, and then and not let him get killed, not destroy his confidence until they get more weapons around them, better offensive line to protect him, maybe even probably a better defense. So I think they get those 2 wins, and I think they're gonna go, yeah.
Darren, what do you think? Over under 4.5.
Yeah. So Nim, are they going to be the worst team in the league with 2 wins? Are they drafting number 1 overall?
I think so. I think it's gonna
Okay.
be them or the Giants.
So
I agree with that.
yeah, I'm not too far off then with you on that. I think I am going to take the under. I think they get 1 more win than what Nimmer said. I think they're going to be at 3 wins on the season. I think they'll steal someone during the middle of the year. Say if there's like that team is riddled with injuries, they're going to eke out some random win apart from beating the Chargers, which I think it could be a possibility. I think that would be kind of a slugfest in a sense. But yeah, I have them on the under and being, I'd say, the worst team or the second worst team in the NFL.
Yeah, I have them going under 2. Probably 3 or 4 wins. I actually think their defense is probably going to be still a factor for them. You look at some of the guys they have. Kyle Duggar's back. Who's the other DB they have there? I know Mills left. Their linebackers are still the same. Their D-line is still the same without Judon.
Yeah.
So I think their defense is going to be probably the highlight of the team. That being said, I don't think they're going to be a very good team. Their offense will be interesting to watch all year. Pray for Ramondre Stevenson because you're probably going to get 300 carries this year.
Woo!
and and I am excited to see how Polk does and some of these other receivers. Really, Polk, I think there's a chance he might be a decent player. So, yeah, not much I can say past that. I would say they're going to hit the under. So now let's go through and rank the teams. Nimmer, who do you think finishes first through last?
I think I'm going to go with the best all-around team. I think the Jets are going to win. I think it is their year. They're the ones that are going to be competing. Yeah. And then I think they're going to go 12 wins. I don't know if yeah. So 12 wins, but I think it's going to go Jets, Dolphins, Bills, and Patriots.
Oh, I might have skipped the Jets.
I think we did, but
It's okay.
it's perfectly fine.
Let's do it really quickly. Jets over under. Jets, or Nimmer, you got over for the Jets. Darren, you got.
I'm going to change it up at this moment. I'm going to take the over, and I think they're going to be around 10 wins.
I'm going to give them the over too. So there we go.
But yeah, so I think the Jets are they just have, their defense has been carrying them for years with no quarterback. So the fact that they do have Aaron Rodgers, and if he goes down, they do have Tyrod Taylor. So at least it's not, Zach Wilson. But I think that their defense is just going to carry them to the top. Aaron knows it, so he's not going to try to win games. He's just going to not try to turn over the ball. So I think it's going to be the Jets and then the Dolphins. That offense is still going to be a factor. I just don't think it's going to be that big of a factor. And then the Bills and then Patriots. That's my top. That's how I would rank them.
Darren, what about you?
Yeah, I got Dolphins, like I mentioned, taking the division. In second, I'm going to say the Jets. And then in disappointing fashion, the Bills come in third for the first time in a long time. And then wrap it up with New England at the bottom of the division.
Yeah, well, I will say for the Jets, if you don't go over 9.5 wins, you will never hear the end of it from me because you have a fantastic team. You have one of the best defenses in the league. You have a good receiver in Garrett Wilson. You have Breece Hall, who we're all considering one of the top 3 running backs in this league. You put some new guys on the offensive line. Aaron Rodgers If you don't win, if you don't get into the playoffs, just know I'm going to say Peyton Manning would have won. Tom Brady would have won. I'm just saying that now, just so we can get prepared for that. I'm going to say Jets win the division. They better. Bills get second. Dolphins third. Patriots last.
Shit, if Mark Sanchez can take the Jets to the AFC Conference Championship 2 years back to back, Aaron fucking better.
Exactly. You better do this. You better do it this year, because that all that criticism you've been getting is not going to be anywhere close to what you get if you miss the playoffs with this team around you. And Robert Saleh, unfortunately, I think you will be shit canned, and Aaron Rodgers will be smiling as he watches you walk out the door. So that's how I feel about the Jets this year.
Let's take it on to the NFC East. It's getting too hot in here. It's getting too hot in here.
Yeah, so we got the NFC East. This is a really fun division. I can't wait to see how this division plays out. We have the Eagles at 10.5 wins, Cowboys at 9.5, Commanders and Giants both at 6.5 wins. Darian, I'll start with you this time. Eagles over under 10.5 wins.
Yeah, I got them with the over. I think they are going to be around 12 wins. And to answer your later question, with that, they are going to win the division. In the NFC East, no team has won the conference or the division back-to-back or in back-to-back years. So Cowboys won last year. So this year, I think the Eagles take it. And I was doing a little research looking at who's won in the past several years, and there's a pattern. So it'll go like Eagles, Cowboys, Washington. Then go back to Cowboys, Eagles, Washington. So if this pattern continues on, 2025, the Commanders are going to win the division. Mark my words, a year and some change. Hey, Commanders are going to win the division in 2025. Mark my words. Clip this, and if I'm wrong, punish me. But I'm calling it. I'm calling it right now. 2025, Commanders win the division.
I love that take.
NFC East. But
I love that take.
Definitely clipping that. But yeah, I agree. I think the Eagles are going to win it. I think they're going to get 12 or 13 wins. And I have them going to the NFC Championship. So I think that even though they got, I was going to say they got rid of, but even though Jason Kelce retired, which is going to be a huge loss, he's a cap. It's going to be a huge loss. I don't think that it's going to be that big of a factor. I think that they did really, really well in the offseason, adding Saquon, adding a couple other pieces to their offense. I think they're going to win their division at 13 wins.
Yeah, I got the over for the Eagles. This is another one of those teams. If you can't get to the playoffs with this team, I don't know what you're doing. Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley, Dallas Goedert. It just keeps going and going and going. If you can't make it to the playoffs with this team, and I think Nick Sirianni gets a little bit more heat than he deserves. He did get 10 wins last year, started out 10-0. So I would think that this team will make it to the playoffs. I have them probably competing in the NFC Championship. So, yeah, I'm going to give them the over and winning this division. Next, we'll talk about America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. Over, under. Nimmer, what do you think?
So, fun fact, the Steelers are actually supposed to be the America's team, but we didn't want that title. And so then Dallas, they said they went to the Cowboys, and the Cowboys were like, yeah, we'll be America's team. So technically the Steelers are supposed to be America's team. But side note, I have the Cowboys going 7 wins. I think that they lost too many people, whether it be to injuries or whether it be I guess they didn't really trade anybody, but I think that the injury yesterday really affected their defense, and I don't think that they added on to anything in order to help them get over that hump. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, I think Dak is this going to be his last season on the Cowboys. So I do think he's going to ball out, but I don't think that he's going to ball out in the fashion where they're going to win too many games. So I have them at going under with 7 wins.
These are hot
Darren.
takes, man. Jeez.
I think, I mean, none of us know how these divisions are going to play out, but it's fun to kind of talk about what we think is going to happen. So, Darian, I'll throw it back to you. What do you think over under 9.5 wins for the Dallas Cowboys?
I'm taking the over. Unfortunately, I think they always just find a way to win. Sometimes it's due to an easy schedule, and then they get exposed in the playoffs time and time again. I think the same case happens here. They're going to find their way to get second in the division with 10 wins and get their way into the playoffs as a lower seed. Probably see them around maybe 6, 7 for the playoff seeding. But I do say they eke out some wins, close wins, and go over and hit 10 wins on the season.
So looking at their schedule, it looks like they're playing the AFC North and the NFC South. So they're going to be playing the Steelers division and the Saints division. So the Saints division is the easier division, but then they're playing the easiest division and they're playing the hardest division. So
yeah,
it's going to be interesting.
I'm gonna put them just at the under. 9 wins for me. I think the only thing that's good for the Cowboys this year is going to be the people that own CeeDee Lamb and Dak in fantasy. You're going to see, in my opinion, you're going to see the Dallas Cowboys behind in a lot of games, and Dak throwing a lot of yards in garbage time, putting him as one of the top quarterbacks in fantasy, and a lot of those balls are going to go to CeeDee Lamb. I think that's going to be something that happens. They're not going to run the ball a lot because they can't. They don't really have a lot of really good running backs. And that defense, I believe, is going to struggle. It's going to look like a much different team this year. So I have them going under. And I guess we'll go to the Commanders next. And I'll start with the Commanders fan. Darian, over under 6.5 wins.
I think we're going to be surprising this year. And I'm going to say the over. And it's not too far off the mark. I think we're going to be around 7 wins. I think we still have a losing record. We have a rookie QB at the helm leading the offense. I've talked about it earlier in the episode. We don't have the best wide receiver core, and I think our defense is youthful, and I just don't think it's there yet. We don't have a ton of edge rushers, so our defensive pressure isn't going to be there as much, so we're going to rely heavily on our defensive backs, which I think Benjamin St-Juste is a great slot corner. You have Quan Martin, who's pretty good, and Derek Forrest each year has gotten better, but I don't think it's enough. I think we're still going to be giving up a lot of touchdowns over in the air and even in the run. But I think we do come out with 7 wins on the season.
Nimmer, what do you think? Over under 6.5 wins for the Commanders?
Yeah, so I have them at 8 wins. I think that they are. I think that last year the quarterback got sacked a lot, so that was devastating for the offense. And I think that with a running quarterback, he's going to be able to elude them a lot, which is good for the fantasy owners. And so I have them at 8 wins. I think, yeah.
Terry, yeah. I agree with you. I think we tank for James Pierce. Screw it. If we go 2 and freaking 15, I'd be happy if we got James Pierce.
Listen, I'm pretty high on the Commanders. I like the moves they've made. I still think they probably finished 3rd in the division. I would say this 6.5 line might be one of the biggest locks in the league. I do think they're going to hit at least 7 or 8 wins. I'm leaning probably towards more 7 wins than 8 wins, but I like Jaden Daniels. You paired him up with Cliff Kingsbury. a really good offensive mind. You pair him up with Dan Quinn, who's running the defense, who's brought in a bunch of players from the Cowboys, a bunch of players from other places that he's coached. I think that defense is going to look not great, but I think it'll still look much better, much improved from last year. So I'm going to give them the over. And now we have the Giants. Nimmer said, Patriots and Giants, they are vying for the worst team in the NFL. They are all going to be wearing toilet seats if they are the worst team.
in the airports.
So I'm assuming you're going under here, Nim.
Oh yeah. I think I have them squeaking 3 wins. I just don't think that they have. I mean, I don't think that Daniel Jones is a person. I don't think that's going to be their quarterback. I think that they have lost their best player. I feel like if they kept Saquon, it would have been a completely different story. It would have been a completely different offense with Saquon and Neighbors. Yeah, with Neighbors. And so, but the fact that they have Singletary instead of Saquon, that's huge. And I think Karma's gonna bite them in the ass, and I think they're gonna get the 3rd round pick. Or
Darren, what do you think?
Second round pick.
Yeah, I'm taking the under as well. I'm right there in agreement with Nimmer. I think this team just doesn't have the pieces necessary to be a winning team, especially in the NFC East. So I think they're probably going to eke out 3 wins, like Nimmer said. Worst case scenario, they're going 2-15. So I think they are bottom of the barrel. They're going to be drafting right next to the Patriots come this next draft.
Yeah, the Giants, I have them going under as well. Like you guys said, probably 3-4 win season. Good thing about them is they have a really solid defensive line now with Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Thibodeau, even though he's kind of been up and down, but pretty good defensive line. Other than that, though, I mean, I like Neighbors, but I just don't know what they're bringing to the table. I feel like they've been trending downward each year, and it's going worse and worse each year that you have Daniel Jones sitting on that massive contract that he has. So yeah, I have the Giants finishing under 6.5 wins. That's another line I'm kind of surprised about being that high, really. Nimmer, what do you think? Who finishes first, second, third, last?
So I have the Eagles finishing first. I have the Commanders squeaking by the Cowboys and going second. The Cowboys going third, and everybody's gonna freak out when they only get 7 wins, and then the Giants dead last.
Darian, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm flip-flopped in the middle there, but I think Eagles take the division. Second place going to be Dallas. A growing year for the Commanders, but coming up short and being at 3rd in the division, and then last place being the Giants.
Yeah, I've got the Eagles running away with this division. I have Dallas coming in second. I have Washington barely finishing behind them, and then the Giants at the bottom. Like I said earlier on a couple episodes back, I think Dallas is looking at a 9-7 year. I think it's going to be a tough year for them. I think Mike McCarthy's already in the hot seat. If you finish 9-7, that's probably call for fire for Mike McCarthy. And I think Bill Belichick is on the prowl. I think he's on the way for Dallas. I think that'll be a really interesting move to see Jerry Jones and Bill Belichick run a team together. And let me say this one thing about the Giants. I forgot to say this. Watching the Hard Knocks this past season, it's like if me, Darian, and Nimmer said, you know what, screw the podcast, we're going to go run an NFL team. That's what it's like watching that show. So I think they are definitely going to finish last in that division. But that's what I got. I got Philly, Dallas, Washington, Giants. With that, we are going to go to break. We will see you guys in 5 minutes. welcome back to the Do Not Disturb Football Podcast. I'm your host, Drew. In the gray shirt is Nim, and in the red tank top is Darian. Make sure you are following us and subscribing to us on all of our social media platforms. We are on Instagram, X, and YouTube, and TikTok. Terry, shout out to you for watching. I would love to grade your roster today. Unfortunately, we have a few in ahead of you. We'll try to get to yours because you're watching today. We would love to see you come back. Maybe grade yours on Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. We love your comments too. McCarthy speaking Chinese next year made me laugh out loud. So we are now going to focus on a little bit more of the fantasy side. This is the main part of our show. We like to save it for last. Today we are speaking about who is the player with the highest upside. So highest upside or the biggest upside can be a little difficult to explain. Upside usually is for a player that is drafted later but has the potential to be ranked as a much higher player, say a top 15, top 10, top 5 player. Last year, perfect example was Sam Laporta. He was getting drafted like in the very last round, 16th, 17th round for a lot of people. In our league, we didn't even draft him at all. And he ended up being the number, I want to say 4 tight end, 3 tight end, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. He was one of the top tight ends. So that would be kind of the model we're chasing today. The player with the highest upside. Nimmer, why don't I start with you? Who do you think it is?
I think it is. Oops, sorry, wrong buttons. I think it is Gus Edwards. I mean, I said this in previous episodes. I think that he is going to be one of the biggest breakouts. One of the bigger players that has the biggest upside. I think that with John and Greg Roman being their head coach and OC, I think that with them two combined, they love running the ball. They spent their first round pick on offensive linemen, and last season, Gus Edwards had 810 yards with 12 TDs, and that's with a rushing quarterback. That's with an offense that did not like rushing the ball. That's with an offense that should have kept rushing the ball in the AFC Championship, or else they would have won the game. And that's all due to Gus Edwards. So I think that he is going to he has the biggest upside, and yeah.
Darren, who is your player with the most upside?
I'm going to sound like a broken record. I say his name at least once every episode, but I'm completely sold on Spears. He is the guy. He has the biggest upside in the entire league, I will say. Just with the competition that he has against Pollard, I think he's going to slowly chip away at his target share, but also his carries, and inevitably become RB1 or their starting running back for the Titans going forward. He's athletic. He's dynamic. He does it all. And even a testament to what I said in one of our first episodes, he's efficient. This dude averaged 5.5 yards per touch, which ranked 6th among RBs last year. So, I mean, when he touches the ball, he's going to get yards. And how he's going to get them is efficiency, and he's going to be he's going to maintain that productivity through the season. And I think with that, and he gets more touches, he steals them from Pollard, he is going to become a mainstay for the Titans organization for the future.
Yeah, I think both of those guys are very good players for this topic. I think they both have a lot of upside to them. Did you see, Darian, that Tajay said me and Pollard are going to go top 5 in rushing this year?
Hey, I believe it. I'll put truth behind it. I don't know if Pollard will be there, but
I don't know how that's possible. For
top 5? That's crazy. Yeah. That's crazy.
It's crazy, but I love the mindset. Just honestly feed both of them the ball. Let's see who's going to be efficient, who's going to carry this team. And my money's on Spears.
I agree. I like Spears a lot more than I like Pollard, and I know that's Pollard's on Terry's team, so we'll get to you later, Terry. But my player with the highest upside, this is a guy that I am already staring at in the waiver wire. This is the one, the only Justin Fields. I think, to say a lot of upside right now is probably a shot in the dark. It's a little bit of like, I could understand when people would question me about this, saying like, how is that the guy with the most upside? But I think when you look at his numbers, just 2 years ago, he was, I believe, the number 2 quarterback overall, hit number 1 quarterback in some weeks, gave you monster performances running the ball. And now I think he's in an even better offensive system with Arthur Smith running his playbook. And I think Justin Field could be a big waiver wire ad once Russ starts to struggle, which I do think is going to happen. I said on a podcast two podcasts ago, I think that he's probably got 4 games in him until they start Fields. I think I'm going up. I think you give Russ 6 games, and I still think he's going to struggle and get pulled at some point. Mike Tomlin has already said that he's still open to using Justin Fields in packages. He even said to Atlanta, watch out. We're not going to just have this talent sitting here on the bench. I would be really interested to see if first game they put Justin Fields in on a 2-point conversion and they have him run it right up the middle or on an option play. I think that is something to watch out for. Maybe Atlanta Falcons maybe do some film and try to prepare for that, because I feel like Arthur Smith is the kind of offensive coordinator to throw that kind of play in there on the goal line and try to get 1 extra point to make the game closer or put them ahead a little bit more.
Yeah, I think Justin Fields is definitely going to go in the red zone package, kind of like what the Saints do with Tyson Hill. And by the way, Drew, I just picked him up, so he's no longer.
Oh, you picked him up?
I
was going to say, it's some insider trading, like some Nancy Pelosi bullshit. Live, he just added Justin Fields, dropping Rashid Shaheed.
Yeah,
as soon as he said that. So
that's smart. I mean, you're probably waiting a little bit, but I think once he gets in there, I think that's going to be a really good pickup.
Yeah, and I have Kyler Murray as the starter, and I even yesterday when I was grading my roster, I was mentioning how I needed a backup, and I feel like he would be a perfect fantasy backup. So I saw that.
That was
Thanks, Drew.
2 years ago. I had Kyler Murray as my starter, Justin Fields as my backup, and I won the championship.
There we go. See, championship.
Maybe you got
I might as
something
well
there,
just keep the trophy. Just give me the trophy now. That's all.
Yeah. Yep. Just have Ricky mail it to you. But that is our highest upside players. Let us know in the comments who you think has the most upside for fantasy this year. Could be someone else. I was going back and forth between Justin Fields and Ladd McConkey. I went Justin Fields because I thought, I've talked about Ladd a little bit, so I wanted to throw a new name in there. And Justin Fields literally won me a championship 2 years ago, so I'm always going to give some homage to him for that. Next, we have the segment that we have just created. This is the roster report cards. So we're still going through our league's report cards. Starting next week, we're going to go into some viewers' report cards. I think right now we have a couple lined up. We would love to get some more. Please DM us on Instagram. Send us a screenshot of your starters and a screenshot of your bench. We will put them on the screen. We will talk about them live, and we will give you a grade A through F on your team. Hopefully there's no Fs out there, but if there are, I'm going to tell you about it. So
and make sure you tell us the pick and how many people are in that league.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Let us know amount of people in the league, and what pick you have. That gives us an even better
You
idea.
can only imagine they said it's like, oh, it's a 14-man league, and you're like, your team's bad. It's just-
Yeah, exactly. That's funny. So, who is our first one up? We got Kason first.
yeah. Well, let's start out with you.
Okay, let's do me. Let's do me first. I'll let you guys go first, and then I'll throw my 2 cents in after.
Go ahead. Do you want to go first, Darian? Let Drew also do.
Yeah, honestly, a really sneaky draft. Obviously, we have to put into context that at the 10-11 flip, that was Austin. He fucked his draft up, which basically made it a 9-man league. So Drew drafted Jonathan Taylor in the first round and then got Justin Jefferson on the turn, which is absolutely stupid. That you should never see that in any league. Ours is an anomaly. So just with that, it really just strengthened your team. And then drafting upside with Cooper Kupp. When I say upside, he's actually going to actually outperform his ADP and outperform Puka as well. I think Puka has a regressed season, like I mentioned, for Ricky's team. James Cook, another great piece to add just with the pass catching ability. And then James Conner, he was one of my dark horses that I wanted to draft. I think you drafted him earlier before I got to the board. So I was pretty upset about that. And I love that you got Ayuk as well. So your wide receiver core is great. Running backs, really solid. So your starting lineup overall, I love a lot, especially drafting Jordan Love, who slings the ball damn near to everyone on his team and puts up massive points. And then bench-wise, getting Jonathan Brooks, putting him on IR, so you open up another slot, getting the Saints defense. I saw that move yesterday. I was actually gunning for the Saints defense, and then you picked him up right before me. But I love the depth that you have with Jaleel, Chuba, Pat Freiermuth, and even Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk being the wide receiver one for the Jaguars. So I think it's a very versatile team. I definitely like this more than others, and I'd give this one a solid B plus, A minus. I think it's pretty gracious of me, but I think it's a pretty damn good team.
Yeah, I definitely think that I really like your receivers. I really, really wanted Cooper Kupp, but you took him from me. And the fact that you do have Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, and Jonathan Taylor is crazy. And James Conner. I think James Conner always performs above his ADP. But that being said, I'm not too sold on your running backs. I think that you are a little lacking in your running backs. For me, I don't like how you have a backup tight end, backup quarterback, and a backup defense on your bench. I think those slots should have been for like probably add one more running back instead of Freiermuth maybe. But other than that, your bench is pretty solid with Christian Kirk and Ladd. Even Hubbard's not bad, but he's going to be unreliable on the Panthers. So I would probably give this an A minus B plus range.
Yeah. So my draft strategy. What's crazy is I absolutely knew I was going to be 8, 9, 10, somewhere in there. So since the spring, I've been on Draft Wizard drafting from the 8, 9, 10 spot. So I knew that's where I was going to be, especially knowing that I was going to have a punishment for coming in late. I knew I was going to be drafting right next to Austin. I knew he was going to draft Justin Tucker. So with the first pick, in Jonathan Taylor, the only reason I picked him was because all the guys, the big running back names were pretty much gone. You had Brees gone, Christian McCaffrey gone, Bijan gone. The next guy to me was probably Jonathan Taylor. That was like the one guy I think I was staying quiet about all this whole time. The day of the draft, I wanted Jonathan Taylor. That name really jumped off the board to me, and I knew at 8 I would have a chance to get him. What I did not expect was Justin Jefferson being able to slide him to the second round. I knew that once I took Jonathan Taylor, I wanted to see what Kaysen was going to do with his next 2 picks. I think he went.
He had Garrett Wilson.
Who was his
And
first pick?
Saquon, I think.
Saquon. Yeah, so he went Saquon right after the Jonathan Taylor pick, and then it went to Austin, and of course he picks the Justin Tucker and
Chiefs defense.
The Chiefs defense. So now the pressure's back on Kaysen, and I'm just watching him because I'm like, either you pick Garrett Wilson here or you pick Justin Jefferson. There's no other guys you should be picking here. So let me see who you want. And I was honestly going to be happy with either of those guys. He picked Garrett Wilson, so I took Justin Jefferson. What's crazy is I feel like all the guys I've talked about, I drafted. Besides maybe like Jordan Love and Jonathan Taylor. I spoke about Cooper Kupp. I gave everybody the game plan. I said in round 3 or 4, if he's there, you take him, no questions asked. I got him. Dalton Kincaid, that was the last guy I thought was going to slide to me at tight end. I got him. He's probably, in my book, the number 1 tight end this year. And then Christian Kirk, I've always been a fan of Christian Kirk. I love having him on the bench. I got Ladd. The one regret I think I have is drafting Pat Freiermuth as high as I did, because I think I got him in the 9th or 8th round.
Yeah.
And Njoku was still on the board. So I think I jumped the gun with Freiermuth. But I always like having, 2 of each position on my bench. I've been in situations, not in our league, but in a different league. I've been in situations like last year where I drafted Nick Chubb and then I didn't really have a running back to put there, and that screwed me. But I would give myself an A-. I think this is an A-.
And for everybody's record, ESPN ranks him 6th. That he's going to land 6th in our draft.
I think that's probably because they're saying Cooper Kupp's not going to do well this year, or they're saying Cooper's going to do better than Cooper. I'm assuming that's why. So
it's better than 9th. That's all I have to say.
I mean, I think after the draft last year, I think I was ranked 8th or 9th last year after the rankings, and I finished 4th. Those rankings don't mean anything.
No, I was ranked 2nd to last year, and I was tied for the best record this year.
So who we got next? We have
good old Hooker.
Kaysen or Hooker, yeah.
You can go Hook.
So this is Hooker. I am having a little hard time seeing this on the screen, so I'm going to pull this up on my phone.
I'll make it bigger. Is that better?
Yeah, that makes it better. Yeah. You guys want me to go first?
Yeah.
Yeah, fire away.
So this was round 10 when Hook looked at me and he said, who do I take a quarterback? And it was either Jaden Daniels or Jordan Love. And I looked at him dead in the eye and I said, you take Jaden Daniels. And he said, are you sure? And I said, I'm going to take him. If you don't take him, take Jaden Daniels. He could be really, really good this year. And he talked to me after the draft and said, well, we're probably going to have to trade because you like Jaden Daniels so much. So he's already putting that bug in my ear. I really think that Jaden Daniels is going to be a solid pick at quarterback. I like his starters overall. Achane does worry me a little bit. I've had a little bit of like a stick with the Dolphins backfield. I noticed that with McDaniel, he runs with whoever's hot. So if Achane's started the game with like a 30-plus yard run, Achane's going to get most of the carries that game. Same thing goes for the next game. If Mostert starts the game with like a 20-yard run, Mostert's going to get the most of the carries that game. So I'm not huge on Achane. I'm not even sure if I can say his name correctly.
I don't think anybody can. Someone says it different every time.
I've heard him pronounce it, and then I've heard everyone else pronounce it in every single other way, even his first name. So I think it's Achane.
I mean, it's better than what Quaz says, Achine.
Achine. I would say Achane is probably like a B minus running back to have on your team. So that's going to take him down probably. AJ Brown, I like. There's a lot of mouths to feed there, so could be some duds out of him. Malik Neighbors, I'm not too high on, to be honest. I was pretty surprised when Hook picked Neighbors. Kelsey, not terribly high on either. I think he preserved his body last year, and that really hurt him in fantasy. He's a great player, and he showed up in the playoffs, but I think you could see the same thing this year where he's preserving his body and he doesn't put up a bunch of huge numbers. T. Higgins, I like that pick. I like the Zamir White pick. Bears defense is a very sneaky defense to have this year. His bench overall it's decent. I like Lockett. He's always pretty solid. Deontay Johnson could come out and have a good year. Tajay Spears, we've talked about a lot on this show. I think he's good. Tua as the backup. Yeah, I mean, he's okay. I'd give Hook a B minus, very close to a C plus, but I'm gonna give him a B minus.
Yeah, I think I agree with you in your analysis with some of his picks. I love Bijan. I picked him up last year, first round. So it was a steal for him at 5 to take him, one of the top running backs off the board. I was kind of in his ear about Achane, and I told him, I was like, I think it'd be a really good pick just to have because
you're sabotaging.
Nah, I didn't. No. I like I like Achane because just the explosive play calling that McDaniels has. He's bound to have 15 points at the low end, 50 being his max, and we saw that last year. So it's a safe bet. I mean, like you mentioned, whoever has the hot hand is probably going to be the one with 50 points, but you'll see Achane or Mostert being in at 15, 18 points. So it's a healthy second RB on his team. What scares me, I think, is Neighbors. He doesn't have a second strong standout wide receiver. He's been in my ear for Devontae Adams to help his wide receiver core out, which I was tempted because I wanted Jaden Daniels. So I always like to help out when I get a little nugget of gold. But yeah, Neighbor scares me. I love T. Higgins. I've talked about him a lot on this show. I think he's due for a breakout season if healthy. Zamir White was a great pickup as well. Kelsey, I think, is just going to be Travis Kelsey. He's going to get those yards. He's going to get those touchdowns, that red zone receptions. So he's always a safe pick. And to your mention, like the bench, it's decent. It's not the strongest in the world. I love the sneaky pickup of Dontavian Wicks. We've talked about him on this show a little bit. But yeah, Tua doesn't really strike a chord for me. I love Lockett. I always use him as trade bait during the year because he's Mr. Consistency for Seattle. Jordan, I don't know if he has a really good year this year, but the best pick on his bench is Deontay Johnson.
Over Tajay Spears, we just went over him.
No. I'm saying like best bench pick. Tajay is probably going to be thrown in. I think he's going to probably take Neighbors off, throw in Deontay Johnson as his wide receiver too, and have T. Higgins and Tajay, or I'm trying to think here of his format. Yep, I would probably have Deontay Johnson with AJ Brown, T. Higgins as one of your flex. Zamir, depending on who's healthy for Miami, might be your RB2, and then you slide in Tajay for a flex spot, depending on the week. But I think Deontay is going to have a breakout year as well. With I forget who the Panthers OC is, but they usually have really good seasons under him. But overall, I agree with you. I think it's probably a C plus, B minus territory.
I agree with both you guys. I think this is a B minus C plus range. What's funny is that Hooker, the people that are watching that don't know Jack Hooker, he's very consistent. He's very wants somebody. All he wants is a player to get him 10, 15 points every single game. this roster has a lot of. I feel like he really gambled a lot in this roster. We don't know Malik Neighbors, Jaden Daniels. I mean, I feel like everybody thinks that he's going to be good, but he might not be. Achan's kind of the same because he was injured last year. We don't know if he's going to be the RB1, if he's going to be the RB2. Even Deontay Johnson, I don't think that he's going to do that well. I think he's going to catch that Steeler wide receiver curse that if once they leave the Steelers organization, they're just going to forget how to play. Like, if you guys remember, Deontay Johnson had a really bad, hard time catching the ball. So I feel like that's going to come back to him. So it's just funny that this is more of like a gambling roster, and Hook is not the biggest gambling man. But I do like his picks. I am weary about Travis Kelce, just because the same thing's gonna happen just like last year. The Chiefs are gonna be middle of the pack. They're not gonna be the stand out, blow them out of the water type of team. But then towards the end of the season in playoffs, that's when they're gonna really crank it up. So I don't think he's going to do that well in fantasy, but I don't think Cole Kmet is going to be that good either. So he probably should have picked Freiermuth instead of Cole Kmet, and definitely I wouldn't have drafted Jordan Addison. I would have left him for Austin, just because I don't think he's going to do well. I mean, JJ might not do well either, just because of the quarterback situation. And I know at least JJ's a really, really good receiver. Jordan Addison is kind of up and down when it comes to that sort of thing. And then I'm actually surprised that he's lower on wide receivers, than he was last year. I feel like his wide receivers are on the weaker side compared to his running backs, which was the complete opposite of last year, where he was Mr. Wide Receiver. So, but I think B minus, C plus is an appropriate grade for this.
Yep. And just one more thing on my roster. I do think the one downside to my roster, it is very upside dependent.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, if these guys don't show up this season, I could very well be wearing that toilet seat next year. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think all these guys are going to be solid.
Yeah, I think if you had this roster last year, you definitely would have wore the toilet seat, just because like Cup got hurt, Cup didn't do well, JT didn't do that well, James Cook was iffy, Justin Jefferson only played 10 games, Ayuk did really well, James Conner did really well, but I think if you had this roster last year, yeah, it would have sucked, but I can see the upside in this.
And now we have Kaysen, right?
Yes.
Yep.
So Darren, why don't you go first on your assessment here?
Yeah, so first thing I note is the stack of Jalen Hurts, Saquon. I wouldn't have really drafted the rushing QB along with the running back, just because one or the other is going to steal points from each other. I would have rather perhaps stacked a wide receiver with Jalen.
You like staring at me. It's their dinner time.
But when it comes to it, I mean, you have a top 3 QB in the league. You have Saquon, who's mad athletic. Then you have Derrick Henry, which I'm not really sold on this year in an offense that doesn't like to rush the ball. I don't think it's a terribly good fit for Henry. As Drew mentioned, he probably would have fared better with the Cowboys since they love running the ball, love mauling. So it'll be interesting to see how Derrick plays out in Baltimore. Love the Garrett Wilson pickup along with Marvin Harrison Jr. That's a high upside pick. Jake Ferguson, I love that pick as well for tight end. He was actually one that I was gunning for, but obviously Trey McBride was there, and so I sniped him. Don't like the Zay Flower pick. I think he's going to have a fall-off season. Godwin is a great pick. He's moving back to slot this year. in the Bucks offense, so he should outperform his ADP. And last time that he was in the slot for the Bucks, he finished, I believe it was wide receiver 7 and wide receiver, I think it was 11 in the following year. So really high upside in what he can do when he's playing slot for that team. Then the bench overall, I don't truly care for anyone on it. Maybe Shakir and Dobbs, but Mike Williams, I I need to see tape. I need to see him play before I put him on a team. DeAndre, he's hurt, getting old. Raheem, I think could have decent performances, but it's just going to be inconsistent. Like Drew said, who's going to have the hot hand? I'd rather have consistency on my bench. And then DeAndre Swift, who's not the most impactful running back. He could get you points in that Bears offense, but yeah, his bench isn't the prettiest. But I mean, you can always appreciate the handcuff with Jordan Mason that we talked about earlier. Um, Score wise, taking into account his bench, this is like middle of the road C maybe plus range. I'm not too sold on it. I think it's bottom of the. He's going to be in the losers bracket again.
Oh no, no, listen. Oh no,
I'm sorry.
he's gonna have to beat his beer mile time.
Yeah, so this was the player that got lost, and this is Kaysen's the one that had to wear the toilet seat and had the worst record last year. So
Oh, poor Kaysen, man.
I think he's the only thing that's going to help him out is his wide receivers, and that's Godwin, Marvin, and Garrett. Zay, I'm not sold on, and everybody on his bench, I'm not sold on. So that's why I think he's going to be at the bottom of the league.
Drew, what pick were you?
I was pick
You were 8, and he was 9.
8. He was
Kaysen
9. Yeah.
9, and then Hook was 4.
5.
5. He was 5.
Mhm.
Okay.
5. Yeah, 5.
Yeah, so I don't think it's I don't think it's gonna be the worst in the league, but
I think that was pretty harsh.
I said he's going to be
That's your
one.
honest opinion. That's fine.
Yeah,
Um,
I like it though.
But he does have a pretty good starting lineup. I think the only hole he really has, Derrick Henry is gonna be a touchdown machine this year. I think in a non PPR league, he's gonna be the best running back in a non PPR league. Unfortunately, we're in a PPR league. Unfortunately for Kaysen. But I think Saquon kind of will help compensate for Derrick Henry. I love everything but Zay Flowers. He was actually sitting next to me, and I told him not to take him, and he ended up taking him. So it is what it is. But I think that's really the only hole that he has in his offense or in his starters. His bench, however, I do like Swift. I think with Caleb Williams, I think that he's going to get a lot more of touches with a rookie quarterback, especially in the beginning of the season. And Moser, I think that, like Drew kind of said, it really depends on who's hot. So that's a good pick. And the other two are kind of, I mean, right next to their name, they are questionable. Like, I feel like it isn't the best pick, but I don't think it's the worst pick in the world. And Dobbs is a pretty good pick. And Shakir is also, for Buffalo, you never know who's number one. So I actually suggested that just because he doesn't know who is going to be that target for them. So I probably would have gotten the Chargers running back also instead of Jordan Mason. What's his name?
Kimani Vidal.
Kimani, yeah. I probably would have picked him up instead. But yeah, so I would just give him a B. I would maybe B minus probably. I'd give him a B minus because I don't think his team is as good as me and Darian's, but I think it's still a solid team. And for ESPN, I have it up right here. ESPN grades this that he's gonna place second in our league.
Which that is nuts. But so I can't imagine him finishing second, but I also can't imagine him finishing last. I will say that, Kaysen, I don't think you're finishing last this year. I will give you a little breakdown of this draft here, though. I think the biggest mistake you made was having Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley on the same team. Once you draft Saquon Barkley, in my mind, I am not going anywhere near Jalen Hurts because one of those two is going to take away from each other. And I would assume it's going to be Jalen Hurts taking away your touches in the red zone from Saquon Barkley just because that's what history says. So I think that was a pretty big mistake. I would have waited to take in a quarterback later, maybe like where I was drafting round 10 for a quarterback or round 8, 9. I know that Jalen Hurts is that shiny toy that you just want to break out and play with, but it doesn't make sense to have Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts on the same
But
team.
then wouldn't you want, if let's say Jalen Hurts does steal touchdowns away from Barkley, but he's getting points either way? You know what I mean? So I feel like stacking would be beneficial in that aspect because, like, I understand if Jalen Hurts is on my team and I'm playing Kaysen, then yeah, I'm stealing the touches and the touchdowns away from him, but he's gonna get it either way.
Well, another argument to it is when you look at this team, his top weapons are probably Garrett Wilson, Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, maybe Marvin Harrison Jr., but I would say your top weapons are Hurts, Barkley, Garrett Wilson. So that means you're going to have a bye week with two of your top weapons at the same time. You're going to lose that game most likely.
Mm-hmm.
And then you kind of look at Kaysen's bench, and this is going to sound mean, but it's like, was this an auto draft? I really like the Mostert pick. To me, I'd rather have the Mostert on my bench than Achane and my starters. That's kind of how I look at it. Your receivers, Kaysen, I love. I love Garrett Wilson. I love Marvin Harrison. I love who else you got here?
I was like Dobbs.
Zay's decent. I don't know how his year's going to go. Godwin I like. So I really like, especially your top two receivers, Garrett Wilson and Marvin Harrison. I think you knocked that part out of the park.
Oh, yeah.
Ferguson is a sneaky tight end that I think is going to make some noise this year. The Niners defense, I like, but they also hired Staley as the coordinator for them. So we'll see how that goes. DeAndre Swift, I'm not too high on this year, to be honest with you. The Bears have been kind of running committee running backs for a long time. I could see that trend continuing. And DeAndre Swift tends to get hurt pretty often. So overall, I'd give you a C+. Yeah, C+. No way you finish second. No way you finish last.
Nice.
It's going to finish 8th.
What'd you say?
I think he's going to finish 8th. That's where I think he's landing.
I feel like he's going to go like 6. No, not 6.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to make – I think he goes 7th.
7, yeah. I think 7.
7th. I think he just misses playoffs. Or he just like –
Well, 6 it would make it to playoffs, so
yeah.
7.
I think he's going to be on that fringe.
That's fair.
It's okay. He's got a whole year to listen to this podcast. So does so does everyone viewing at home. Like I said, we're going to be doing these report cards for all these viewers that send in their rosters to us. Take screenshots just like you see on the screen, starters, bench. We'll give you a grade. You've seen how mean I can be. That's going to continue. But just know it's all love. I'm always here to help, and I'm a huge critic, so that's just the way it goes. But that is our show for tonight. Follow us on all of our social media platforms. We have Instagram, TikTok, X, YouTube, D&D Football Pod. That's where you can find us. From Pittsburgh, it is out for me, Darian, Texas,
Yes, sir.
and Nimmer in Arizona. That is everything from us tonight. It was great seeing you. Come join us again next Tuesday. I will be there all week.